There we go. Can everybody hear?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Let's all remute ourselves except for me. So don't hit all mute all because that does mute me. That may have been what happened. And we're going to get started finally. Thank you again for your patience. So my name is Heather Hawkins. I'm the grants manager for the South Carolina American Revolution Sesquicentennial Commission. And this is a grant overview for the 24 fiscal year and how to apply. A lot of this, if you've been on one of these before, will be very similar. So we'll try to zoom on through. Quick reminder that this 250th anniversary of the American Revolution is so important because we're reclaiming our history here in South Carolina and our role in making this great nation. And South Carolina is where we had more skirmishes, battles, and moments of bloodshed than any other state except New Jersey. I always have to leave that caveat in there. So we're reclaiming that history, and we're celebrating for more than just one day. So yes, there will be fireworks on July 4th, 2026, and these grants are to help as many of these assets get in place prior to that anniversary, when we know all the tourists and all the marketing will be happening. But the commission has clearly said they want to recognize what South Carolina's role was in the Southern campaigns. A lot of that took place 1780, 1781. So we're looking at 1770 to 1783. That is very important for grants because this is the time frame that the reviewers are looking for. It must fall within that time frame. So unfortunately, even though there are great projects out there for French and Indian War sites, there are great projects out there for Constitution education, both of those would fall outside of our parameters for grants. So please keep that in mind. And we do have 9 grant programs. So we're going to start, though, by saying who can apply. And there's a whole bunch of folks. So obviously our County 250 groups, local governments, tribes, museums, universities, nonprofit organizations, even for-profit organizations that are in the cultural tourism area. We can look at that and see if you're eligible for a public-private partnership. We do have some with some caveats that is even allowable. Individuals are only eligible for research and publication grants. All applicants must be from South Carolina, and in that the only exception is if you are an individual or institution that's doing research publication specifically about South Carolina during the American Revolution and you're outside of our state. That is an exception that we sometimes make. So one of the things I know that's very difficult for our County 250 groups is figuring out how to handle the money, because you are unable to, if you don't want to start your own nonprofit, you find a partner, and this partner is your fiscal agent, and technically that fiscal agent will be the applicant. So they will be the one technically signing or agreeing to the grant agreement if you are awarded, and this person is keeping up with all your finances. So please review. We've got some additional information on our website about fiscal agent responsibilities, and that includes providing all of the support documents for your grant. County organizing grants, we've gotten a lot of these out there in the communities and the counties, but we do have some that we still need to distribute. These are one per official County 250 group, one per county. And these are non-competitive, but we still have to fill out all the paperwork. So sorry. We are dealing with the people's money. So there are official approved projects for the organizing grant, but they do have kind of wide topics, and you can also say other and provide your own as long as you have real specifics with that. The strategic plan is something that a lot of people are using it for. Others are doing their first low-hanging fruit marker, like the marker that will get everybody to know that we are going forward with something in our community, get people excited. And there are lots of other options that you can do. So that's the strategic plan is just one of those options. Local museum style panel grant. Everything else we're going to talk about is competitive, this one included, up to $5,000. This started very traditionally as a wall map, in a museum. As you see this first example with the Mars Center down in Jasper County. And this is great. You can do this in your local museum. This is actually a movable piece because they don't have room to leave it forever and ever. They're very intimate, a museum. So this is something that's movable. They can actually take it to the school or take it to a high traffic area. So that's definitely an option, is to have something that is movable and shareable. Take it on location for an event. But this gives you an overview of all the different locations within Jasper County that you can go check out that are related to the American Revolution. And this gives you a great way to say, okay, here's where you can learn more. We're very much into making sure that we are sharing the love around these rural areas and local tourism in the rural areas. The local activities grant is our next one. This has kind of a broad angle. This is something that we thought of as mainly let's put on a play or let's do a parade, kind of local activity. But it has expanded to include things like marketing. One of the first ones we approved was a media campaign for the portion of the Liberty Trail. So with one of our county groups and one of our county museums. So take a look at this. This is a 20% match requirement. A lot of people are using their the accommodations tax and funds from their county to help with that match. But that is required, up to $10,000 for this one. We had raised it a little bit because we had some higher options that came out, but we have brought it back down to $10,000 as a cap. But if you want to discuss something with me that may be beyond those parameters, let me know. More than likely, though, we're going to keep it up to $10,000 as we're really trying to spread the love this year. County Asset Assessment and Historic Tourism Plan. This is where we take a look at what you have in your community and assess it. We don't. We actually find an expert who does that, and then they create an historic tourism plan. How do you market what you have, those assets you have in your community? This is a 50-50 match, and it's up to $10,000. Research grants, we have, in addition to nonprofits, county 250 committees, institutions, individuals. This is one where individuals can apply. It's up to $10,000. There's not a required match. It is competitive. Publication grants, eligible for those same groups, up to $10,000 and competitive. Education grants, this is one of our focuses this year. We are kind of taking a step back and looking at our priorities, but we'd love to hear your ideas of what you're interested in doing. Up to $10,000, again, competitive. Signer and marker grants. This could be everything from an interpretive sign, directional signs, historic markers, to marking your 18th century roads. So there's lots of ways you can define signage and markers up to $10,000. This is competitive. And then site grants. This is where the bulk of our funding is going. Planning, acquisition, development, and renovation. We want to have as many assets available across South Carolina when the big marketing happens in 2026. Match required is 80%, is 20% for the match, with us providing up to 80%. I will tell you what I'm seeing getting approved, though, are folks who really have built partnerships and have a higher match percentage. We really respect that, and people who are pulling lots of things together to make it happen. Planning could be looking at archaeology. We got to make sure we're in the right place. It could be planning your maintenance plan for keeping this into the future. It could be acquisition is our other type of site grant, and there's lots of due diligence on that, and I can walk you through that process. Development, this could even be training your docents for a new site, such as at Fort Fairlawn, where we funded part of their docent program to get it started when that site was added. Renovation, we do ask that any renovation is not necessarily just deferred maintenance. It can be an and, but we like to have some added value, ADA compliance, additional information and interpretive signs, better access for the public. So that's what we can kind of define as renovation. And do keep in mind, these sites have to be specific to the American Revolution in South Carolina. That has to be key to these sites, and it has to be open to the public. So we're going to spend the people's money. This means documentation and paperwork, unfortunately. A lot of folks have done some naughty things over the year, and that's we have to fill out a bunch of paperwork to make sure we're being responsible. And you would request that of your state anyway. So we're just on the other end of it this time as we look at doing this. So as we go to distribute the funds, most state grants are reimbursement grants. That means that you have to spend all the money up front. We worked really hard with the state to get approval to do 80% up front. This is me asking you as the applicant to make sure that you understand this means I really have to have all your paperwork at the end of the day. This is us putting our neck out to do this, giving 80% of the money up front. We need to make sure this partnership from you guys, if you're awarded, you're making sure all the paperwork gets done. We do encourage you to have that extra 20%. That will be reimbursement, unless that would keep you from finishing the project, and we can work through that. But we encourage you to negotiate contracts so they know that the last 20% can't be paid out until you have all the paperwork and the receipts and everything's ready to turn in. So everything is going through the Discover SC, the PRT program on web grants, and there are different sections. And we're going to do a demo in just a second. General information, cover sheet, narrative, assurances, support documents, and budget. And let's talk a little bit about the narrative. So there are a couple things you can do. We do have a Word version of each grant that has been updated for 24 fiscal year. Those are available on the web pages for each grant type, also on the funding opportunity within web grants. You can scroll to the bottom and click on the Word version. This is if you want to work on your narrative offline. You can, write and rewrite and then cut and paste if you'd like. Do watch your character count. I have made it larger than it used to be, but it still has a limit. We've got reviewers who are going to have to read a lot. So we're wanting you to kind of really hone your conversation. Do know that if you have a larger plan, particularly if you're looking at a site development plan, please attach that in your support documents. We'd love to see additional information. The project summary has been split into two parts because a lot of folks are maybe getting a little off American Revolution in their application. So one of the things that I'm seeing, the ones that get approved are very related to the American Revolution in South Carolina. That is now a separate question from the elevator speech version of your summary of your project. So make sure that you have information about how this specifically relates. We know we're in the right place. We know this is talking about a South Carolina American Revolution story. And again, 1770 to 1783. Deliverables and impact have also been split into these two fields. The deliverables and the measurement of success will copy directly into your contract if you are approved. So we want lots of specifics. I love it when people do 1, 2, 3, 4. Like what am I going to tangibly have at the end of the day? What am I buying with my grant money? What am I going to have at the end of the day? A lot of people in writing this answer often write about their hopes and dreams for the impact of this on their community. That is lovely, but that is not for this answer. This is for what tangible things am I going to have at the end of the day? And then how are we going to measure that success? So again, 1, 2, 3, 4. This could be by media response. It could be social media likes. It could be a number of people who attended. It could be online hits to our new website. So really looking at how are we going to say, was this successful? Did it have an impact on my community? The other section that we're really putting emphasis on in the 24 fiscal year is longevity. They are really looking closely at things as we start tightening down and knowing we've got to move quickly on a lot of these things. We want to spread out all over the state. We're really looking at infrastructure for the next 50 years. Cultural tourism, education items that can be in place into the future. There you go. I forgot these were one touch. Okay. So next we have our budget best practice. So don't create your budget just around the top amount. $10,000, that's what I'm going to ask for. please make sure you know what you're asking for and does it really match. Of course, sometimes it will, but start with what you need and how much that would cost. Do your homework, get quotes. The more detail you can give us in your budget, the better. Not all budget categories will be compatible with your grant. Feel free to skip a section of the budget categories, those allocations. So like land acquisition is not going to be part of an organizing grant. So just take a look at those. If the grant request amount is part of a larger budget, please only include SC250 funding request in each breakdown section. So we love to see that y'all have a larger budget. We love to see partnerships. We love to see cost share. But the sections at the top, before you get to the cost share section of the budget, are only or your ask. So only include the ask portion in that section above the cost share component. Make sure to not exceed the total amount available for the grant type. And this up to amount is listed on the funding opportunity main page and on our website. The County 250 organizing grants, for example, the request amount must total $3,000 exactly. However, if you have a larger budget, that's wonderful, that's fine. Just make sure you include that in the cost share matching funds section. Personnel section, that allocation section refers to staffing. So this is if the county is going to charge overhead for managing the project. You can do up to 20% for administrative staffing, no more than that. And if you can get by with not doing it, that's great too. But we do allow up to 20%. Now, contractual would refer to a graphic artist that you've hired, a web designer, somebody who's going to do a project for you, clearing some land or whatever you're looking at. Those are your contractual section folks. So partnerships and matching funds have become increasingly more important. We want to see that everybody's all in and we've all got some skin in the game. Please note that your required match amount cannot include in-kind. So if you have a required match for your grant type, it's 20% or 50%. That section of that amount of your match cannot be in-kind. You can demonstrate in-kind, which is fantastic. You can include that in your description in your partnership question under the narrative, but that in-kind is not allowed in that required match amount. If you exceed the required amount, just make sure that 20% is in quote-unquote cash. So, and also please, as you go to figure out what that match amount is, don't look at 20% of your ask. Make sure it's 20% of your overall budget. So the total budget, you have to do 20% or 50% of that. And while we hope you already have these partnerships and this matching amount, you can figure out backwards how much a 20% would be by dividing your award amount that you're asking for, your request, divide that by 80%, and then multiply that amount by 20%, and that gives you your match, as you see in this here. And this slideshow will be available later if you need to use that when you're configuring your match amount. These are just some pro tips to kind of recap. So make sure you've explored our website first. There's lots of information on our website. Make sure that you're staying 1770 to 1783. If you've already completed one application, make sure you're copying and don't start from scratch. So as you go to do your next one, some things will not transfer because I have made some changes in this year's application, but a lot of that stuff will transfer, like a lot of your attachments, your support documents. Show partnership and cost share, even if not required, if you can. Demonstrate clear deliverables and a researched budget. Demonstrate impact on longevity. And I really suggest everybody go ahead and register for a state vendor number. And there's information about how to do that on our website. And you can set up direct deposit. So wherever you get a grant from the state, you would need to get a state vendor number to be issued the funds if you are awarded. And it's time to register. So we're going to go register with SC Web Grants. We're going to do a little quick demo. and then we'll come back for some final slides. So we're going to end our slideshow here, and I want to make sure that I am sharing the right screen. So we're going to take a look at our homepage first. I want to make sure that's what's going to be shared. Let's see what we've got going on here. There we go. Okay, good. So we want to start by just exploring real quickly our website. Here's our grants tab, and you can click directly on this tab. And this is where we've tried to put some information about planning your project. So taking a look, asking yourselves these questions that have become really important to the reviewers, making sure you're going through talking about longevity, historical accuracy, have you gathered all your materials? So this is a great place to start as you're looking at planning your project. And again, I got to this page by simply clicking directly on the tab. If you go down to the 24 fiscal year grant programs, you can click directly on that. And that's where you'll see what the review panel priorities are, and we've talked about most of those. To grant cycles, this is where you'll find out information about that. You can download the grants basic sheet that you can hand out to your committee or to your organization, provide as you have conversations deciding which grant works best with your project. And then you have basic for all of the grant programs. This clicks you into each page for more specifics about the grant. They're also over here, and you can go and then do the drop down for the different grant types there as well. And on this section, you'll have more about the planning. You can talk about, actually that took us to the wrong one. Let's get this up there. There we go. So this takes you back to your project planning tips. Then you have grant requirements, who's eligible, how to apply. These are the different components. These are the support materials you'll be collecting with your fiscal agent. We are encouraging that any applicant that is not a County 250 group, make sure that you're looping in your County 250 group. And we really would love to see a letter of support if they are interested in supporting your application. And if you have a memorandum of understanding or other documents that are required, that would be listed here. And reminders of the budget best practice. Up to amount, anticipated application deadlines. These are kind of generic this year as we've done more due diligence in the review process, but there are some basic award dates. Make sure you're planning far in advance because a lot of times it does take time to do the due diligence. So immediate funds is going to be hard to do on a lot of these projects. Is there a match? How will we distribute it? Again, 80% up front, 20% on receipt of completed final report. The only exception is if you are a government agency and you are the fiscal agent for your County 250 group and you're applying for a $3,000 organizing grant. It's only for the organizing grant that we can send the full 100% to a governmental entity. All right, helpful links. So right here you have a how-to. You have how to submit your application. So this is registering. This is submitting. This links you back to webinars. We hope to have a recording of this up shortly. We also have a recording of other webinars, and I'll show you that as well. Sample contact Excel spreadsheet, a Word doc. This is the paper version, Word version of the application. This is only for reference and preparation too. You cannot actually apply through a paper version. This is just to help you, and you don't have to use it if you don't want to. And always at the bottom, you have a registration. This is where you get on web grants. You can click here to go to the web grants program, or you can look at I've added it to the drop down here. So our second tab takes you directly to the web grants program. If you ever can't find the link, I've had a lot of people go, oh, how do I get there? A lot of people end up on the PRT main site and not the web grants site. So if you ever are looking for it, just go to the grants tab and click on that right there. Again, we have webinars here where this will be eventually posted. And then previous grant awards. We have some of those posted. We hope to update more of those from the last section that we've done. But we do have kind of some examples on there. Grant recipient guidance if you are awarded. There's lots of information on there. Also, I did want to mention back on getting involved. You have funding and basic fiscal guidance. This is where you find more information about your fiscal agent if you need to work with someone to establish that relationship. All right, let's go ahead and get started in web grants. Make sure we are sharing our new screen. We are. Good. So I'm going to sign in as my external user so it looks more like what you guys have. And let's get kind of familiar here. Actually, let me go back real quickly. If you have not already registered, please do. Click here to register, and you fill out the information as you would. This is very important. Make sure that you select SC250. That way the notification comes to me that we have a new user in the system. So make sure you're selecting that. And you see there is an EIN requirement. So this, if you do not have one for your organization, if you're a County 250, for example, you can put individual here and it will remove the requirement. That gets you in the system and beyond that requirement. But you do have to, if you're not an individual, or if you are a nonprofit, you will certainly have to have one if you're applying. And fill out your I'm not a robot, save your registration. It does take a moment because one of us has to make sure, so we don't have duplicates, they have to make sure that we go through and approve each person before you're allowed access. So it's not immediate access, which is why I encourage a lot of people to go ahead and get registered so you're ready to go when you're ready to apply. All right, now let's get signed in. So you have your dashboard, and if you're sent work assignments like reports, sometimes those will show up usually there. Alerts and information. I am an external reviewer, so you wouldn't see that, and a site visit person, so that would not be there for you. But these others would. Funding opportunities. This is where you can learn more about each type. You'll notice that this also includes state park applications. So there's several programs that are open right now for the state parks where they graciously allowed us to be in this system, and you can apply through here for those as well. But of course, the ones that say American Revolution Sester Centennial Commission are the ones that are ours. This is our organizing grant. Let's look at the local museum style planning grant. So you'll see the description is here. This is very similar to what we saw on the website, but you can always use it for reference as you're going through and prepping. And here are those links. So if you want to do a contact information spreadsheet, applicant instructions for applying for funding in web grants. So that takes you step by step through your application process. And then this is application Word version right there. If you need to sign up for that state vendor number, there's a link to procurement, and of course a link back to our website. So there's lots of good information just on this first page under funding opportunities. But this is where we start a new application. Once you have an application, it will show up here. You can start a new application, or you can copy an existing application. Again, if you have previously applied for something in our system, you can copy and clone. So you just hit this button, choose which one you want to copy, and then copy application. Once you have started an application, they will show up under your applications, and you'll note that I have quite a few that I've worked on. So I'm going to scroll all the way down to our demo one for today. So we want to start off with this one here. This is a site grant. So this is a legendary spy, Molly Fortune, where our executive director gets to be in the center of our screen today. And this is in Baxley County, of course, for our chairman in our demo. So we're going to click on this one that's in editing mode. You do have to hit edit application once you go back in the second time, and then it takes you to your details. You have components, and each one of these components you have to get a check mark here, and this way you will know that you're ready. This will change and say you can submit, and you'll have a new submit button once you have completed all of these check marks. So let's go through these one at a time. When you start a new application, you will be asked to fill this out. And we have a title that you'll fill out, primary contact, And the most important part of this, well, also organization. So if you're involved with more than one organization, as I am connected to more than one, you want to make sure you're choosing the right organization. And then additional contacts is very important. This is how other people in your committee can get in here and work on the same application. Maybe this is your county finance person who's your fiscal agent. You can add them as an additional contact. So once they are listed there, they will have access to this application. It will show up in their dashboard. They do, of course, have to be registered in the system first. And we do mention that the primary person is the only one who can go in and change this additional contacts, I believe. So this general information page is controlled by the primary person. And we're going to go now to our cover sheet. So our cover sheet, we've had some questions about this. Hit edit. Note that the system does not auto save. And every time you hit save, it will take you all the way back to the top. I wish it didn't do that. And I apologize, I've got a lot of notifications in my computer this morning. Are you located in South Carolina? This has to be yes, unless you are that individual applying for research publication and you are working on a project specifically about the American Revolution in South Carolina. So if you say yes, does your project specifically pertain to the American Revolution? Yes, you have to say yes to get past that point. And then your applicant type, you can be an official County 250, or if you put individual for this one, I believe it's going to say you can't do that. Let's see. That won't let me do that. All right, so you do have to watch that. It'll hit you on the back end, but sometimes you'll get a red note. If you ever get where it won't save, it's off to go to the top, and a lot of times there are notes saying, you can't do that if you want to apply.
Said he was
So who will be managing your grant funds?
The second night is always the worst, and then it should get better.
If everybody can mute themselves so that we can keep hearing everybody. So thank you. Individual, so this would usually be your fiscal agent. And again, best practice is have your fiscal agent as the applicant. So select that. Your project director, this is usually if you're working on like a County 250 with a fiscal agent, this would be your County 250 person. The fiscal officer is going to be who's going to manage that money for the fiscal agent. This could be your finance director for the county. Now, of these two people here, can one of them sign off on money being spent for this project? Or if it's the finance officer at the county, does the county administrator have to sign off on it? So if that's the case, then you would say, no, these two people can't sign off on spending money, and here's who can. And that way we can keep them in the loop as well. So I think it's going to probably make me fill things out if I don't go backwards. The last section here is going to be the fiscal agent's state vendor number. And this does not require to actually apply. This is not a required field, but we do encourage you to go ahead and get that state vendor number so we can move quickly if you are approved. So include that there, and I'm going to change this back to individual so that I can hit save. Now note that I still haven't marked it as complete. If I felt like I had everything in there correctly, I would mark as complete, and it let me do it. So even though I didn't have some things, I had some things missing, you can mark it as complete. Because I left it as an individual, I think that's why it allowed me to do that. Sometimes it will block you and it'll have red circles around sections that you have to fill out. And you can still edit that section, but that mark is complete helps you kind of check off what you've gotten done. Okay, we're on to the narrative, and note that I can toggle back and forth between the sections here. And this is, of course, the app list back here, takes you back to this one. And I can also, anytime you hover over a line and it turns green, you can click anywhere on that line to select that item. We're going to edit our form. And this is where I was talking about we split these into two answers because the Revolutionary Era in South Carolina question is so important. So make sure you're fully answering that question. Make sure that this is your, elevator speech. Again, I gave you a little bit more space this year, so take a look at that. So this is just one of the things we look at when we do the review. If it's selecting the county that you're located in, and then it will automatically select the tier for you. We took a list of battles and skirmishes, and I know there are other things related to the American Revolution, but we had to start somewhere. So we used battles and skirmishes list and ranked activity in the counties based on that number of major battles and skirmishes. And so you'll have, and also very significant battles and skirmishes. So there may be a reason to have more funding in Charleston, where they had 98 battles and skirmishes, than in another county that maybe didn't have as many. But then we also know that when we look at this next question, the Department of Revenue Tax Job Credit Ranking tier, this is based on your county's per capita income and unemployment rate. And a lot of times the county that has a lot of battles doesn't need a lot of help financially because they've got pretty good an economy. So we do look at those as just two minor factors as we look at creating economic development in communities across the state. Have you received prior funding? We are trying to share. So this is another question. Make sure if you are cloning that you are updating this answer if you've already received one from last year. I do also mention back on your original general information page, make sure if you clone, you are changing it, because it will just say name of grant and then copy. And I do encourage you to use that title, because that title will be used to give to the commissioners. That title needs to be very descriptive and not just say Berkeley County 250. It needs to have a what are you spending the money on kind of idea. Grant type. So as we take a look at the details of a project, we're going to select which type of grant we're doing. So in this case, we're doing a site grant. And it's going to say, well, what type of site grant? Well, we're going to do a acquisition grant. I'm just choosing one. All right, and then this is for site grants. It's going to give us a list of things to think about. Who is responsible for executing the site development plan? Who will own the title to the property? So there are lots of things to consider as you write this section, and they're kind of spelled out for you. We've gone into more detail on this year to give you more insight for what they're looking for. Other specific points to consider. So if this was acquisition, you want to have contract, site design and engineering, site clearance with DOT. So there are lots of things to consider as you look to plan this project. And you may need to choose planning if you're not quite there yet. All right, and then the next question is about scholars and peer review. Are we in the right place? Let's make sure. Has archaeology ever been done on the site? What kind of primary sources are we using? What scholar have we used on our committee? Even if it's a volunteer, if they're from the local, university and helping you with that. Promotion, this is where you're going to say, all right, once the site is developed, our chamber has agreed to help us do some printing and some awareness campaigns about this, or this is how are we going to promote this? Who's going to help us with promoting it? Maybe it's becoming a county site, so their PRT is going to work with us. That's school trips have been planned. We've already arranged. It's known, talk to the school district, and they're very interested in school trips once it's ready to go. All right, deliverables. This is again where we split this in two. This is probably the most important part of your grant, other than your basic description and that at the top, and making sure you're within the American Revolution. This section is very important. I love it when people list again. For example, a new County 250 website, new County 250 social media pages, maintenance plan for both. So these are generic examples, not just for site development, because we wanted to have these sections of the grant application be very similar, or basically be the same form. This allows us to do the cloning. Otherwise, we would not be able to clone. So we do encourage you to look at listing and look at specifics for your type of grant. Measurement of success, attendees at the event, survey of participants. So how are you going to decide how successful it was? Inclusion. This is something that the commission takes very seriously. We want to make sure we're telling a more complete story. And we want to make sure that we're not beg, borrowing, and stealing to make this happen, or kind of shoehorning this in. You know, if it doesn't, if you don't have African Americans in the event, if you don't have Native Americans at the event, that is, you know, part of that story. As long as we are looking for them and making sure that we're covering that basis as much as possible. We also want to make sure that the folks on your committee, your marketing team, your how do we get the word out, make sure that those folks are inclusive, that you are representing your entire community on your committee or within your team that's working on this project. So there are very various ways to do this, you know, to be inclusive, making sure we're telling loyalist stories. It's official. I've now seen the muster list for the British with my ancestor on it. So loyalists are important too. So make sure that you include information about that. Participation and access. It's public money. How is the public going to have access for it? Engagement. Are you just got a location? How are they going to be engaged if they come? Is there a takeaway that they get when they come? Is there a website or a QR code, or how are there teacher plans for visiting? Those kinds of things. How are you going to engage the public in this? Here's your longevity question. Are we looking at a 50-year lifespan for this location? Are we setting it up for success? Is it a one-time event? Okay, well then could planning be put into place to sustain it annually? Is there a way we can create a template so this same project could be done in other areas of the state? And that we're actually implementing that in a lot of our grant contracts is the creation of a template to share, because we want to work better together. And speaking of that, partnerships are very important. How are you going to document the commitment? What are they bringing to the table? And how are you going to structure that project accountability? This is particularly important if they're doing different sections of the actual plan. All right, to get to your planning and timetable, you do have to save your form. And it's going to tell me I can't do that because, let's see, I think it gave me, yep. So execution of plan is requiring me to put something in it. I'll go ahead and I'll make sure that gets changed. But yeah, this one too, it has something in it. And if that happens, just put anything in there, and then it'll allow you to save. It will take you all the way to the top every single time. And we're going to scroll back to the bottom to fill out our timeline section. We're going to add a row. So that's how you get to the add row button, is by saving, scrolling back to the bottom. And we want to make sure we're looking at benchmarks. You know, if we're acquiring this property, when are we going to have you know, the planning is going to be done on this date, the closing's planning to be on this date, the you know, official grand shovel, you know, we're going to do a shovel grand opening of the project, you know, at the event site or at the acquisition site. So those benchmarks, you can add them individually and do a little description and date of activity. The main thing is, when are you going to be done? It's nice to see a breakdown. You don't have to be super detailed on here, as long as I really need that end date. When are you really going to be done with this? All right, we've gotten through 3 sections. I'm not done, so I'm not going to mark it as complete. Assurances. This section is a lot of legalese, but it is helps us make sure that y'all are on the same page. So are you going to follow your local procurement code? Do you agree to a grant meeting before you get started on the project? Are you going to meet with me and make sure that we're all kosher on all the project? Are you going to hire a disbarred person or somebody who's in kind of conflict with the state? Let's not do that. Are we going to have public access for your location? And then once everybody's comfortable with that, and again, the fiscal agent also, because they're technically the grantee, they need to be comfortable with this. This is basically like signing it. You say yes, you fill out your authorizing official. This could be your nonprofit executive director. This could be the county administrator. And then if you are a government entity, and only if you're a government entity, do you have to fill this bottom part out. This is maybe the county council chairman. You never want to sneak up on a county council chairman and have them not know what's going on. So it's just good practice to loop them in and make sure they're on board with everything. The next section is support materials. And there are 3 that are required regardless of the type. But again, we tried to have this be universal for every application type. So there are some things that you have to keep in mind. This is required. It is not completed. So that's very important distinction. You click on the file that needs to be uploaded. You select it from your computer and you do a brief description and save your file. And once you do that, it will show up here. So if you don't see things out here, you haven't gotten it uploaded. Here's your letter of support from your County 250 committee if you are not a County 250 committee. Again, not required, but that is highly encouraged. If you are a nonprofit, these are your 4 additional things that we have to have. And then look at your type of grant. So site acquisition has a few more things that you have to fill out. So make sure that you're looking at those. And if you do have additional support documents, make sure you attach those here. I do want to distinguish back here in the ones that are required for everyone. W-9, make sure they're signed. I had a lot of them turned in that weren't signed. Make sure that this is your current fiscal year budget and this is last year's fiscal budget. So not the last statement from the bank. This is the last fiscal year's operating budget. And some people have yearly budgets that start in January. Some have July 1st. Some have October 1st, depending on your organization. That's fine. Just have this be last year's financial statement. And that could be a 990 for you nonprofits, which is a lot of what I see. And then finally, this budget section. This is where we were talking about allocations. Often we don't see personnel because you don't have any staff. This is related to staff work. And this is where if you were going to use administrative overhead in here, again, no more than 20% of your total budget can be that. But you can list that there. Supplies and materials, equipment, contractual breakdown, acquisition. If you're organizing grant, you're not going to have acquisition, so just skip that section. And then there's other expenses. We often see marketing and things like that and other expenses. You add a row, and just like we did with our timeline, we fill out our three items there and we save our row. So, and then it'll take you, let me just do one. Let's say we're going to do marketing, and we're going to do event marketing for grand opening, and it's going to be $2,500. I'm going to save our row. It takes you all the way to the top. Sorry about that. You scroll back down to the section that you want to add to, and then you would add an additional row. And this is where, and then it gives you the total under each section. Everything above here needs to be your ask, because those will be tallied up for total SC250 requested amount. Everything below here is your cost share, your matching funds. And again, you can put in-kind here, but it cannot be part of your 20% match or your 50% match requirement. And often your in-kind items just put back in the partnership section of your narrative is probably the best way, because it will take a look at this and do percentage of match here. And if you have in-kind mixed in, that gets a little confusing. Once you have this section done, you mark it as complete. And then it shows up here. Let me go ahead, I'll mark these others complete so you can see what happens here. Oh, no, it's not going to let me do that because I'm not done with sections. So there are some required sections on the narrative it wants you to complete first. Once you do have all of those checked, again, this will turn green. You'll have a new submit button. You'll hit submit. And then when you hit the pop-up, it'll say, are you sure? You're going to hit the question, the submit again, and make sure that it is complete, because at that point you can't do any more editing. All right, so that's our demo. I saw a question pop up. Let's see if I can, let me just stop sharing for a moment. Let me go back and see if we can see the question that we had. All right. Can the 20% match be in the form of financing, loan, mortgage, etc.? Yes, I don't see why not. So as long as you are the person, or your organization is the person responsible for that loan or mortgage, I would think that would work. It's mainly do you have, some skin in the game? Are you going to be a part of the solution of making it happen? So I think that's the answer to that one. What other questions do we have? And I know we're almost out of time, but do we have any other questions before I do a quick little last minute check on our PowerPoint? Anybody else? Okay, so let us go back. Make sure I'm sharing. And I want to very quickly hit some highlights on some other notes. And we're going to do from current slide. That's going to take us all the way back through, isn't it? Okay. Well, sorry about that. Let's see if I can stop and share again. And I want to just show you very quickly. Let me get down to the section at the end. I want to talk a little bit about making sure that our program is the right match for you. First, here are your deadlines, and May 7th is for the organizing grants. Those can be approved at any time. And then all other grants, we have 2 grant deadlines. Excuse me. We have 2 cycles this year, not 4. So we have September 26th, which is coming up, and then we have March 26th of 24. These are all at 3 o'clock. That gives me a chance to kind of close everything out before the end of the day. And then we want to remind you that there's more information. These recordings will be available on our webinars page, which is under the grants tab on our website. And I will be doing one-on-one application support by appointment. We've been so overwhelmed with so many wonderful applicants and questions that I'm doing this on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I'm going to be soon putting a link on our website where you can do doodle appointment link, so you can go ahead and just select a time that I'm available and sign up at least 24 or 48 hours in advance, so I know that you're coming. So thank you for that. You can also just email me directly if you want to set up a one-on-one appointment. And if you missed it, we recently did a Meet the Funders event, a rich opportunity with all of these different grant organizations. It was a privilege to work with them. They were so supportive of me as we were starting this new program. We learned a lot. I encourage you to watch that webinar or watch the different sections. Maybe your program fits better with one of these. So Humanities has quite a few programs. They also have a speakers bureau, and let's talk about it, book discussion, which is very helpful. And they also can help you learn more about the National Endowment for the Humanities applications through the federal government if you want to go that route. A lot of their money is their pass-through, but they can help you with direct applications. And then archives and history. A lot of people ask me about renovations of property, and this is probably your best way to go. It does have to be on the National Register. There's lots of steps to go through it. But Brad Sauls, who's our SHPO expert on grants, has been doing this for quite a while. He is wonderful to work with, and he has both state and federal grants that he can help you with. And the South Carolina Arts Commission has a ton of programs. Really take a look at this. This is a great way maybe to incorporate your education department in your district. So there's a lot of great stuff going on at the Arts Commission, and you can view them all through their website. PRT is our strategic partner, and they have some amazing grants. And just want to quickly say, Land and Water Conservation Fund is, if you're going to have recreation on the property, what a way to bring some money in. Acquisition, you can buy property with this, develop projects, acquisition and development. There are, again, lots of hoops, but it's a great way to get some funding for a new park or something like that. And we encourage kind of multi-use. You know, is it going to have American Revolution interpretation, but it might also have trails. And another way to help promote some of these things is the Undiscovered program, which I think is a great program, and the Recreational Trails program. A lot of people ask me about trails, and this is a fantastic program. And then, of course, everybody knows about PARD, which is available for governmental entities for parks and things like that. They also have some marketing grants that they use through their marketing department. With South Carolina Conservation Bank, if you're going to conserve property, this is a great way to kind of work with them to make that happen. They are lovely to work with. And they gave out fair market value for their grants, $29 million last year. So that was leveraged with partnerships. Department of Education has lots of grants. And under the Open Foundation grants, I found this, which is a historic field trip grant program. Make sure that you check that out with the American Battlefield Trust. National Park Service has expanded their semi-quincennial grants to include not just governmental entities, but also nonprofits this year. So that's a big change. You do have to be on the National Register, or you need to be working towards that and have a letter from the SHPO office saying you're eligible. And Virginia Harness is your contact there. State Library, wow, they're amazing. They have, you can request a virtual appointment about grants. They're going to have some new webinars with new dates coming soon. And there are also free webinars and tutorials from this organization that you can link right into. So lots of assets on your state library. And then this is us. So obviously, you know me, Molly Horton's our executive director, Bill Davies, our vice chair, he's our county liaison, and Amy Hood, I want to thank her for her help today. I need to put your picture on here, Amy, so that we can share that. She's our new coordinator and has been doing an amazing job, and as we get things done. So there she is. Hi, Amy. So, thank you, everybody, for participating today. Do check out our website. Make sure you check out the funding, the Meet the Funders for more information about those other grants. And those will soon be posted on our webinar page. There's also handouts linked there, so you can find lots more information, including contacts. Click on the agenda, and you'll have all the contact information for all those grant managers who are just amazing to work with. Last chance for questions. Anybody?
Thanks, Heather. That was interesting. Bill
Okay.
Rogers.
Yeah. Hi, Bill. Thank you so much for listening. I'm glad you were able to hear finally.
Got on my hands and knees and worked on the speakers, but it didn't work.
All right. Well, of course, y'all know how to reach me. Please reach out. Again, thank you for your patience with the technical difficulties at the beginning of the day. And I appreciate you all. We are excited to see lots of things happening across our state as we go to celebrate and commemorate the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution. Thank you for all you do out in your communities. Y'all have a great day.
Thanks. You too.